Hey everyone, welcome back to Fingraph India. So today we're tackling something absolutely crucial for your CA, CS, and BCom exams. We're doing a masterclass on Section 9 of the Income Tax Act 2025. Honestly, if you've ever looked at international tax rules and just felt totally overwhelmed, well, you're in exactly the right place. Grab your notebooks, because we're going to decode this whole thing logically, step by step.
Let's kick things off with a pretty massive, real-world question. Think about it. Trillions of rupees are moving across international borders literally every single day. So how exactly does the Indian government catch globalized income that's, trying to escape taxation? Because a lot of times these insane, super complex corporate structures are built for one reason: to shift profits to tax havens and dodge paying their fair share. Well, to fight back, the government casts what I like to call the invisible tax net. And Section 9? That is the actual legal fabric of that net.
Okay, let's look at the core of Section 9. The magic phrase here is deemed to accrue or arise. You really need to understand this. Basically, it means that even if a taxpayer gets their money in, say, London, or physically signs a contract over in Dubai, if the root source of that money is here in India, the income tax department steps in. They essentially say, nope, legally, we're treating this as Indian income. It's simple logic, really. If the asset, the source, or the service utilization happens here, the tax belongs here. Period.
Now, just take a second and think about the actual Bare Act text for Section 9. Pretty intimidating, right? I mean, it looks dense, it looks scary, and honestly, it's perfectly designed to put you right to sleep during those late-night study sessions. But hey, don't stress. My promise to you today is that we're going to take this massive wall of legal jargon and just break it down. We'll turn it into simple, logical, bite-sized pieces that'll totally stick with you when you're sitting in the exam hall.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll cover the invisible tax net itself. Then we'll hit salaries, dividends, and capital assets. Third, business connections and SEP. Fourth, we'll tackle interest, royalty, and technical fees. And finally, we'll wrap up with a really quick 1-minute exam revision. So, let's jump straight into part 1, the invisible tax net. Subsection 2 sets up these 4 fundamental routes that basically pull income right into the Indian tax net. Let's think about the underlying logic here. If you're earning income, directly or indirectly, from any asset in India, any property in India, some sort of business connection in India, or by transferring a capital asset that's situated in India, like, say, selling a commercial building in Mumbai, well, that is deemed to accrue or arise in India. And why is that? Because the actual economic value was generated right here on Indian soil. It's really that straightforward. If the seed is planted in Indian soil, the fruit gets taxed in India.
All right, moving on to part 2. Salaries, dividends, and capital assets.
Now, examiners absolutely love testing these specific types of income. Why? Because there are a few tricky little exceptions. Normally, it's pretty straightforward, right? If you render services in India, your salary is Indian income. But here's the classic exam trick, so pay attention. If the Indian government pays a salary to an Indian citizen for services rendered completely outside of India, think of a diplomat working at the Indian embassy over in Paris. Guess what? It is still deemed to be Indian income. The physical location of the employee literally doesn't matter here. What matters, logically speaking, is the sovereign payer who is actually issuing that check.
Okay, let's look at subsections 4 and 10. First off, any dividend paid by an Indian company outside of India, automatically Indian income. Easy. But the absolutely crucial concept for your exams is the rule on indirect transfers. Imagine a foreign company and its shares are sold abroad. Normally, India can't touch that. But what if that foreign company gets its massive valuation entirely from underlying assets that are sitting right here in India? Well, India is absolutely going to tax it. The government actually brought this in to stop people from dodging taxes by just selling the foreign parent company instead of the Indian asset itself. So here's the mathematical threshold you got to memorize. The Indian assets must exceed 10 crore rupees and represent at least 50% of the company's total asset value. Keep those numbers locked in.
Next up, part 3, business connections and SEP. So, what actually creates a business connection under subsection 9? Listen, it's not just having a random friend here or doing one single transaction. It's all about having a dependent agent. And I really want you to underline the word habitually in your notes right now. Seriously, it's the critical legal keyword that students constantly miss in exams. If a non-resident has someone in India who habitually concludes contracts for them, or habitually maintains a stock of goods to regularly make deliveries, or habitually secures orders mostly for them, boom, you have a formal business connection. and the income from those Indian operations gets dragged right into the tax net.
But wait, pay really close attention to this next part, because exam papers are obsessed with testing these specific exceptions. You do not have a business connection if you're just using an independent broker who's going about their ordinary course of business. But more importantly, if a non-resident buys goods in India purely to export them, that is not a taxable business connection. Why? Because the government actually wants to encourage exports and bring foreign exchange into the country. Make sense? That exact same logic applies to foreign news agencies collecting news here or a foreign production house shooting a movie in India, as long as they meet certain non-resident conditions. So always watch out for those exceptions.
Now, the whole business landscape has completely changed over the last decade, right? And the law had to catch up. That brings us to the government's answer to the digital age, subsection 9D, Significant Economic Presence, or SEP for short. All those old rules we just talked about, they needed physical agents or physical inventory. But what about modern apps, streaming services, and huge digital platforms that are making absolute millions in India without a single physical office here?
Well, SEP targets exactly these modern tech realities. Basically, a non-resident has a significant economic presence if they cross a certain threshold of transaction value. Think massive volumes of software downloads or selling user data, or if they systematically engage with a specific number of users in India. Think about, targeted digital ads or monetizing data pulled from Indian IP addresses. This is the absolute core concept to remember. The law explicitly says this applies even without a physical presence. No joke. They don't need a single brick-and-mortar office in India. The contracts can be signed entirely outside of the country, but that invisible net, it's still going to catch them.
All right, moving right along to Part 4, Interest, Royalty, and Fees for Technical Services. Okay, for your exams, I need you to notice a repeating logical pattern across these next three subsections. Let's call them the Big Three. We'll start with the rules around who is paying, looking first at interest. If the government of India pays interest, it is always Indian income. If a resident pays it, it's Indian income, but there's one really logical exception. If that resident borrowed the money specifically for a business outside of India, it's exempt. Why? Because the money isn't actually being used in the Indian economy. On the flip side, if a non-resident pays interest to another non-resident, it's generally not Indian income, unless the debt was specifically used for a business inside India. See how the utilization matters?
Are you seeing how this logical framework builds? Because when we move to royalty, it follows the exact same payer structure. Government pays, taxable. Resident pays, taxable, unless the property is used for a business completely outside India. Non-resident pays, not taxable unless it's used for an Indian business. Exactly the same. Oh, and just a quick pro tip for your exam prep, make sure you note that royalty has a massive definition under the Income Tax Act. It's not just music. It covers patents, copyrights, secret formulas, and crucially, the right to use computer software.
And to complete our pattern, Fees for Technical Services, or FTS. Once again, here's the rule. Government, resident with the outside India exception, and non-resident with the inside India inclusion. Honestly, by learning this three-part chunking technique, you don't have to just blindly memorize a wall of legal text. You've just learned the core logic behind three really complex subsections all at once. Basically, if the money, the borrowed funds, or the technical service is ultimately utilized in India, the tax belongs to India.
Okay, so here's where the tax department basically drops the mic. We call it the subsection 11 twist. And guys, this is an incredibly aggressive rule. For these big three incomes we just went over, interest, royalty, and FTS, it is entirely irrelevant whether the non-resident actually has a physical residence in India or a business connection in India, or even if they rendered the services in India. Their physical presence is completely moot. As long as those specific payer rules and the utilization logic we just discussed are met, that income is caught firmly in the net. No escape.
And finally, Part 5. Let's do a quick 1-minute exam revision.
You guys have made it through the heavy lifting. Honestly, I highly recommend you just take a screenshot or make a note of this framework right now. It's gold for your revision notes. Let's do a super quick recap. Salaries, caught if earned here or if paid by the sovereign government to a citizen working abroad. Dividends from Indian companies, caught anywhere in the world, absolutely. Business income, caught if there's a formal dependent connection or a digital significant economic presence. And lastly, the big three, interest, royalty, and FTS, are determined purely by who is paying and where those funds or services are ultimately utilized. Really try to picture this framework when you're taking your test.
So I want to leave you with kind of a provocative thought. What if a massive foreign digital app targets millions of Indian users, collects all their behavioral data, and then turns around and sells that data to advertisers entirely outside of India? Can they just escape the tax net? Well, based on the modern SCP rules we explore today, you now know exactly how the invisible net of Section 9 reaches out across the globe and grabs them anyway.
And that brings us to the end of today's masterclass. If this explainer helped you finally conquer the logic behind Section 9, do me a favor, like this explainer, share it with your study groups, and absolutely subscribe to Fingraph India. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss out on our future exam-focused updates for the Income Tax Act 2025. Keep studying smart, good luck on those exams, and I'll see you in the next explainer.